Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So just let me present my screen. Hello everyone. So I hope you are able to see my, everyone is able to see my screen, and am I clearly audible?
Yeah.
Yes, Arvind, if you can zoom out a little bit, I mean, make font a little bit bigger.
Okay. Is it better now?
Okay, I'm fine. Is everyone okay with this?
Can you make a little bigger?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So basically, in today's session, we are going to discuss the concept of ruling hash. So it's very fundamental, like I would say, the programming paradigm. So it is used to solve a variety of string related problems. So the this concept is a little mathematical in nature. So, but most of the time, whenever we solve this kind of problems, we use the formulas which are there and not care about the proofs of that. So, in this session, there would be a couple of situations when you will encounter formula a little hard to digest, but just bear with me for that. And because we will not be covering proofs of those mathematical formulas in this session. So I think let's start. So before we get into the actual problem, let's first spend some time in understanding the properties of some properties of the modulo arithmetic and how they are useful. So one property of mod that we have is a plus b mod m can be represented as a mod m plus b mod m and the modulo of whole thing. So this property is very useful when you want to perform a modulo operation, and the reason this representation a plus b mod m looks pretty simple. So most of you would be wondering, then why do we need such representation and what's the use of it? So to address that, let's consider one scenario. You are working for some system which can have the maximum value of integer as 29, and you want to and you have two integers 12, a equals to 12 and b equals to 19, and you have one function mod sum which is supposed to return a plus b mod m. Now a plus b mod 15. So what happens is, if you do add 12 and 19, then it will become 31, which is greater than 29, and you can't store it. So the result will overflow and it will result in the incorrect answer. So what we can do is we can calculate modulo of each number. So a a mod 15, this is 12, and 19 mod 15, this is 4. So now you can simply add 12 and 4, 16, which will not overflow, and 16 mod 5 is 1. So 1 is your answer. Does that make sense? And the 12 and 19 is 31. So 12 plus 19 is equals to 31. 31 and 31 mod 15. 31 mod 15 is also 1. So that satisfies our condition, which we have studied over here. So does it sound convincing?
Should it be 16 mod 5 or 16 mod 15?
16 mod 15. Sorry, it's 16 mod 15.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So that's the use of this problem. The same thing goes for the multiplication as well. You can just take some number and find out an example. So I hope that's clear to everyone. Okay. So let's now delve into the different concept of modulo inverse. So these things which we are studying are the prerequisites for understanding the ruling hash. That's why I'm covering this part before the start of the actual thing. So modulo m, so we call this as a symbol of congruency. So a into x is congruent to 1 modulo to m. So what this statement means is there's some integer x is which if you multiply by a and take its modulo with m, then you will get 1 as a result. Then you can say a and x are congruent, and x is also referred to as a inverse of a. So so basically this thing is called as inverse modulo. We just take its inverse. We need to find the inverse of the given number. So now there is one interesting property of this thing. There is an interesting formula for this. So if anyone have any queries or in between, then please feel free to stop me.
What is inverse? I'm not.
Okay. So just take let's say so if basically a in terminology of modulo, a into I will call it INV, a into INV of a modulo m is 1. So a inverse is basically a number that if you multiply with a number and take its modulo, then the 1 should be the result. So that we call as inverse.
Okay.
So you can think of as a to the power minus 1. So yeah, basically you need to find one number which if you multiply by a number whose you are looking for inverse and you take its modulo with m, then the result should be 1. So that number we call as inverse of a.
Okay.
With respect to modulo m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is inverse also specific to modulo operation then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Inverse is this modulo inverse is respect to modulo only.
Can you give some example? I know that inverse is 1 over a, but then what would be m?
Yeah, m you can think of some modulo. So it's, let's try to think of some example. Say m is equals to say 13, and say a is equals to say
14.
Yeah, no. Let's take say 9. A is equals to 9. So now 13 modulo 9. 13 modulo 9. 13 modulo 9 is 4. No, sorry. 13 modulo 9 is 9 basically. Now we need to find some number which if we multiply by 9, then its modulo with 13 should be its modulo with 13 should be 1. So I think the answer for this will be 7. No, just a minute. So 9 and basically we need to find some number for which model. So
if you want, you can use the chart content. Someone posted a nice example, 2, 3, 5.
Okay. Just a minute.
So I thought x will be like 1 by 9, right? In that case, inverse of a, right?
No, but that has to be an integer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just a minute. Let me see the chat. I'm not able to see that.
Okay.
It's
I can read it. Yeah.
Is it 3?
If you take 3, yeah, 3 is the perfect answer. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So if you multiply 9 3s are 27, and if you take its modulo with 13, then the answer is 1. So I think A inverse in this case, inverse of A is 3 in this case. So I hope that's clear.
So inverse is always in the context of m, right? If m changes, inverse changes.
Yeah, m changes, inverse changes. Inverse is always with respect to modulo. So that's why it's called as modulo inverse.
What is the how do we find a? What is equation to find inversion of a? So
sorry, I didn't get you.
1 divided by a and multiply.
His question is how we what is the equation of finding x, right?
Yeah.
Suppose
so,
given a and m. How to find x?
Yeah.
So one thing that you can think of is basically we are say you can so basically the x is going to be some integer that we know for sure, right? So one simple brute force approach you can think of is you can traverse from 1 to n all the integers, and you can multiply it with a and check if its modulo is 1 or not. So that would be very naive way of calculating it. But that's simplifies the understanding of it. I guess.
But in this case, I think x will be a to the power m minus 2, right?
Sorry, in which case?
In this case, when m is prime, then x will be 9 to the power 11.
If m is
Yes.
prime, yeah.
Hey, m minus 1 minus a will not be the answer.
Sorry.
Because we are trying to multiply and get the modulo number plus 1 finally, right? So if we, for example, a, to get the inverse of a, m minus 1 minus a will not give the answer always.
No, so m minus, from where did that equation come? M minus 1?
Okay, I think, never mind. Because if it is going more than m, then it may be this a and x always going to be less than m, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to find the inverse of another number, so mostly it won't be like m minus 1 minus a will be the inverse of a.
You are saying
Because
m
what I
minus
am, yeah.
Why?
Because every
No, a can be bigger than m. X will be in range of 1 to m. But a can be bigger than m. Yeah. So
okay,
in that case,
okay, a can be more than m also.
Yeah. A can
okay.
be more than m.
Yeah, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then my logic will not work. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So now there is one interesting formula for this. So if m is a prime number, and if you want to calculate the inverse of it, and if you want to calculate inverse of any number n a such that m is a prime number, then its inverse is given by a raised to m minus 2 modulo of m. So actually this is one standard formula for calculating the inverse of a number for a prime modulo. So this is the formula that we have. Actually we'll not cover its the rationale behind this formula. Actually this we have to think of it just as a formula for now, and you can check out its proof, or maybe you can try out and some examples and see that it works for the prime modulo.
I have something to say about what someone said just now, that
yeah, sure.
If let's say in that case, can you scroll up please?
Yeah, sure.
So if a was 8 and m was 13, so according to that formula, x should have been 4.
A is 12 and m is 13.
A is not 12, a is 8 and m is 13. So what should x be according to your formula?
Just a minute. 8 to the power 11.
No, not this. I'm talking about before we studied the formula in the next page, someone was saying that if a is given and that is smaller than m, then x will be m minus 1 minus a, right?
Yeah. Someone suggested that.
Yeah, but that is not a valid formula. That's what we confirmed.
But that is not valid. You confirmed in case of if a is bigger than m. That was valid according to you if a was smaller than m, right?
No, that's also it's not going to be, I believe.
Yes.
I mean,
that's what I was trying to point out, because if
it's true.
Yeah. Actually, that would work. That worked somehow for the just one special case, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So now let's jump right into our main thing, the concept of rolling hashing. So I have one string SDE skills, and I have written the indexes of all the characters over here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So first we will see how do we calculate a hash of a string. So basically for the sake of this problem, hash is one integer that represents a string. So we will first see how do we calculate hash of a particular hash of a given string. So yeah. So now if we so basically we take some prime number p. I have taken here 31. You can take actually any number. It doesn't even have to be a prime, but for this kind of problem, the prime number provides more randomness. So that's why I have chosen 31. But the number which you choose, you should take it bigger than your character set. So for this problem, we have character set of say just small letters, and so it can be suffixed in 1 to 26. So you should take a number greater than 26. So I'll come to its reason why do we need to take that number greater than 26. So if you want to calculate a hash of a number, then we simply write it as s into p raised to 0, this equation which we have. So first character is s. So here by s I mean the integer ASCII value of s, not exactly ASCII value, the code in the order of 1 to 26. So s would be having some rank, so that rank we will put over in place of s over here. So same goes for d. So d, I think its rank would be 4. So 4 into p raised to 1 plus e into p raised to 2 plus s into p raised to 3 and so on. So this is the way we calculate hash of any given string. So for SD skills, this equation, if we follow this further, so it will give us the hash for the string. Now the problem here is that say if we consider integer range, then the max value of integer is somewhere around 2 billion, right? But the strings that we can have is much more, the set of strings that we can actually have is much more higher than 2 billion, right? So the problem here is that this, if we keep calculating this way, then we will very soon overflow, and we won't be accommodate the calculated value into an integer anymore. So what we do is we instead take its modulo. So what we do is we just a minute. So let's take a smaller example, say ABCD. So I'll have A into P0 modulo of M plus B into P1 modulo of M plus so on. So and we take the overall modulo. So basically we calculate in the form of modulo, because we can't accommodate very larger values into an integer. So we instead choose to take modulo while we calculate the hash. So that's one idea which we have seen here. So now the problem that we will try to solve is the needle and a haystack problem. So basically
so
you are given
one thing.
Yeah.
So in your example, you said that the value of s would be according to the alphabetical sequence, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So I think for that you'll have to define something of a hash kind of thing before. Right?
Sorry.
So for s to take some value, like for d it would be 4, right?
Yeah, for d it would be 4.
So for d to take that value, you have to map that d to 4 somewhere, right? Because inherently, I think the ASCII value is taken.
Yeah. So basically, that's just for example. We will do here s minus a, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, in our implementation. So I think that would solve the problem.
Yeah. So I think in this example, because we took P equal to 31, we need to do that. Suppose we take the P as a bigger number, number, then then probably we can just directly take the ASCII value also, and we don't have to
of course
that way. Yes.
So so ASCII ranges of letters lie from say 0 to 122. So if you choose some number above 122, then you won't have to do that. Yeah, but this is generally a standard practice. So whenever you solve this kind of problems, you will see most of the solutions taking 31 and mapping the values from 1 to 26. So yeah, that's the reason I have chosen it. Yeah. So now the problem that we will see is okay. Oh, sorry, I think I have missed one section. Yeah. So calculating hash of substring. Now we have seen how do we calculate the hash of an entire string. So what we do is we actually create one array of integers. Just a minute. Insert line row below. Hash. So each value in this array would store hash of the prefix. So for example, till this index, I will have the hash of this string. For k, I will have the hash of this string. And at index 5, I will have hash till here. So we create one hash array of prefixes. So now our one thing that one thing that we will need to understand. Now this thing is most important thing that which we are going to look at. So if we calculate this array hash array basically. So let's call them h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6, h7, h8. Sorry, I think it will be from 0. Yeah, so basically that's the idea. It will be at 0. Yeah. So we are just denoting them by. Now say if I want to if I have calculated all this value using this thing which we have studied over here. So now if I want to calculate hash of any substring, say 3 to 5, then how can I do it? So this is one important thing that that we will learn here. So I think actually first we should see the problem and then we will come to it. So it will be better. So just let me give a brief overview about the problem, and then we will jump back to it.
What does H0, H1 represent? I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I missed that.
Yeah, sure. So H2 represents hash of a substring from 0 to 2 index. H4 represents hash of a substring from 0 to 4th index. H5 represents hash from 0 to 5th index.
Okay.
Now we are given, this is a very well-known problem. We are given a needle and a hair stack. So basically we are given one bigger text S and a pattern P. And we need to check whether that pattern P, that substring P exists as a substring in a string S or not. So for example, we have a string as SD skills and we have a skill as a pattern. So we need to check whether skill exists in this string or not. So one brute force approach to solve this problem is to traverse S, and for every character, just check whether if we start from that character, then we will find skill or not. So that's so complexity of that is O into M of O into Mn. So the complexity of the brute force approach. So of course this would be very slow and we need to improve this. So what's the better solution that we have? What we can do is we know we have a P whose length is fixed. In this case, it is 5. We know for sure, right? So what we can do is if we calculate say if we calculate hash of this part, hash of first 5 characters, and if that hash matches P, then I can say P is there or not. So basically, if I generate hash of every sliding window of 5 characters, say from 0 to 4, then from here from 1 to 5, then from 2 to 6, then from 3 to 7. And if I ever find a hash that matches the hash of P, then I can say that the string exists in the pattern exists in the string. Is that clear, this point?
But still it is going to be mn, right?
Yeah. So still it's going to be mn, but now we will see the approach for calculating that quickly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So is the concept clear of this hashing thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we will see how do we compute the hash of a substring very quickly. So if in this problem, if the approach which I just suggested, if I have some way of calculating hash of the window of 5 characters in constant time, then complexity of this algorithm will become O of m, right? Agree? Yeah. So now we see this part. Calculating hash of a substring. So now the hash of a substring of S of L to R is given by hash of R minus hash of L minus 1 divided by P of L modulo of M. So now how does that work? So we will just take one example. So say if I have A into say P0 plus B into P1 plus C into P2 plus D into P3 plus E into P4, F into P5. Say I have this string, and this is what will represent its hash, right? I have one string A, B, C, D, E, F. So this is how we will represent its hash as we discussed above, right? Yes. So now if I want to calculate hash of a part of it, say I want to calculate the hash of part C, D, and E. Hash of C, D, E. So how we can do that? Now the array which we have calculated, the prefix array we have already calculated for this, and at every index we have the hash for a substring ending at that index, right? So how we can calculate hash of C, D, E? So that's that there is a concept which we use every time while we solve a prefix sum problem. So that is sum of you would have probably see that sum of I to j is equals to sum of j minus sum of I minus 1, right? If we have like prefix sum array, and if you want to find a sum of any sub array, then it can be denoted by sum of j minus sum of I minus 1, right? So it's a very standard thing that we do every time whenever we solve a prefix sum problem. So I hope that's clear, this formula thing. Yeah. So now the same thing we do here. If you want to find hash of L to R, then we do hash of R minus hash of L minus 1, the numerator part of the formula. We will slowly derive the denominator as well. Hash of L minus 1. So now this is one part that we have gotten. Now the problem is that whenever we have to calculate the hash, we start as a power of 0 power of p. First we do p raised to power of 0, then we do p raised to 1, then we do p raised to 2, right? But in this formula, even if we subtract the value, the power remains same. So for example, if I have subtracted the previous part, so still what I will have if I am calculating the hash of CDE, so C into P2 plus D into P3 plus E into P4. This is what I will be having, right? If I do this subtraction, hash of R minus hash of L minus 1, then I will be left with this part, C into P2 plus C into P raised to 3 plus E into P raised to 4. Is it clear? But what is the hash of it? C into p raised to 0 plus D into p raised to 1 plus E into p raised to 2. That's what actual hash is, right? So what we do is, if I divide this number, basically this number, if I divide this number by say P2, then each number will, then we will get this thing, right? The power of each number will be reduced by 2.
Yes, yes.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason why we have this formula, hash of R minus hash of L minus 1 divided by P raised to L modulo of M. So that is this thing clear to everyone?
So the P going to be same for all the character?
Yeah, P is the one value that we have to choose at the start. So in this case, we have chosen as 31.
Okay. Okay. It's like any constant number.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, you actually I covered earlier why do the like how do we choose P? So basically, the range of characters that we have, in this case, we have 1 to 26. So you have to choose a P greater than that value.
Oh, okay. So, thanks.
Yeah. So
for the hash, for the when you pre-compute the hash, would it already create the overflow?
Yeah. So I'm coming to that part. So basically, if we just assume for a sake for now, if we can store the full value of hash without doing the modulo, say if in some way we can store the full value, then this thing will give us the answer, right? And there will be no complication at all. But the complication starts because what we do is, to avoid overflow, we are not storing in our array actual values of hash. Instead, what we are storing is, we are storing the moduloed value, right? So that's why this formula cannot work in the straightforward way, because this value hash R and hash L minus 1 are the moduloed value, and you cannot simply divide it by P raised to L. Otherwise, it will result in incorrect answer. So I hope I could explain the concern that with this approach.
With one thing, if we skip this p to the power L part in the denominator, will it make any difference in the, I mean, the hash? I know the value would be different, but I think we can also go with that also.
Yeah. So what thing we need to understand here is that, so there is one property of hash function. So if you write any hash function, then one thing which you need to make sure is that it should return same value for same input every time it is called. So if I call hash s for hash s, then it should always give me the same value, one hash function. So now we know that the hash of CDE is C into P raised to 0, D into P raised to 1, and E into P raised to 2. So now what will happen is, if we don't do this thing, P raised to L thing, and then say we encounter this part as at some more later half of the array. So it will give us say P8, P9, and say P10 we are getting. If you don't divide it by P raised to L, then you will get the different value for the same string again and again.
Okay, got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. I hope that I hope I could answer your concern.
Yeah, completely. Thanks.
Yeah. So that's the reason. Yeah. Actually, it's good that you have asked that thing. I think a lot of people would be having that concern in mind. Yeah. So now we will proceed further. So this thing which we have written over here, this formula, we can write it as into P raised to L minus L, right?
Yes.
And P raised to minus L can be written as P raised to minus 1 to the power L. So that's clear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we have represented above equation in this format. Now we have the mechanism which we have discussed earlier to calculate the inverse of any number, which was the formula which we have discussed over here, which was this thing.
Prime modulo inverse.
Yeah. M minus 2 raised to m minus 2 modulo m. So if we calculate, if we just call P inverse as x, then then we can calculate x as P raised to m minus 2 modulo m, right?
Okay.
So now what we do is we raise to do hash into same thing that, and we calculate x raised to L modulo of m. So this thing will give us our proper value of our hash, handling the overflow thing as well. So is that is that thing clear to everyone?
I couldn't understand why x power L.
Yeah, so we have represented.
Okay.
Yeah, we call P inverse as x, and we calculate that, and we replace it. We have just done substitution over here.
We are converting that to constant, so one time calculate and then keep using it.
Yeah. That's what we will do. Yeah. So I hope that's clear.
Wait. So x, you are simply replacing P minus 1 and x power L, but why are we talking this x is P power m minus 2 percentage m?
Yeah, so basically we have a formula to calculate the inverse of any number. So
wait, inverse you mean earlier is modulo inverse. Now the inverse you are doing is 1 by that number. It is a
no. So okay. So let me explain that. So what how is that modulo inverse is basically this, we have modulo of this whole thing.
Yes.
Just a minute. We have modulo of this whole thing, right?
Yes.
And now modulo of A into B modulo A into B modulo M can be represented as A mod M into
B mod M.
B mod M and then whole mod M.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if I apply modulo over here and here, then it will become inverse modulo.
Okay, maybe I am missing something. I don't want to waste your time. Maybe
yeah, I think I guess in the next line we are not saying that we are hash r minus hash l minus 1. We are taking modulo.
Okay, because this is not an inverse modulo, right? Whatever he is saying, it is something like A star B mod M. This is giving this one. That is clear, but it is not related to inverse modulo. P minus 1, I'm not sure how it is returning like a P of M minus 2.
Okay.
Formula, I couldn't understand that part alone. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So we have this formula, right?
Yeah, that formula is very clear. Yes.
That's clear.
Yes.
So now we have this value.
Yeah.
Say, I didn't have this earlier, right?
Yes.
It was looking
yes.
Right. So we can, if I call this part as A and this part as B.
Okay.
Right. So then it becomes A into B mod M, right?
Yes.
So now A into B mod M. Now I can put a modulo over here, right? And it will not make any difference, as we have seen seen this equality.
And can you remove the modulo from outside? Because basically we are taking outside modulo to inside, right?
No. So basically A into B modulo M, if you do, then the formula is A mod M, B mod M, and the whole mod M.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So so now if you put modulo inside, now this thing has become inverse modulo.
Yes. Now if you see the line below, we are not doing A mod M. That's where probably confusion is. The hash R minus hash L minus 1 mod M.
Yeah. So I think actually I should add that over here.
Yes. Okay.
So
and here mod M. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So is that clear now? Yeah, I think that should be clear. So is it clear now?
Yeah, this formula is clear, but still in your previous, whatever you have highlighted, how p minus 1 equal to p power m minus 2 mod m. I am sorry. Still.
Okay, that I think that is on the top. We have discussed. If you can quickly show that, but I think so this one, it is exactly this formula.
Yes, but p minus 1 is just a mathematical inverse, right? But here he was saying modulo inverse something. How the modulo inverse is equivalent to this mathematical inverse?
So there also we have taken one mod on the top also. But yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so basically here we are taking inverse modulo only. Earlier it was not visible since I didn't mention the inner modulos.
Wait, so for example, A's inverse modulo is 1 by A?
A's inverse modulo is not 1 by A, no? Okay. A's inverse modulo will be represented by A inverse.
Yes, so p to the power minus m, you can think of it as written inverse of p. So that will be exactly what the above formula is. Or you can imagine in the above formula that inverse of A is A to the power minus 1.
Mod m, right? Yeah, I think that is what the confusion, right? Because p to the power minus 1 is the inverse. That's not the inverse modulo. But p to the power minus 1 mod m is the inverse modulo of p. Correct?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
No, what I'm saying that I think the question was, so p to the power minus 1, that itself is not a inverse modulo, right? It's just the inverse. So whenever we are saying inverse modulo is p to the power minus 1 mod m. So I think which is the second equation after the multiplication.
Okay.
I think p to the power minus 1 in itself is inverse modulo. We have put a mod m outside because there is also a power of L on p to the power minus 1. So you can consider p to the power minus 1 as
modulo inverse.
Yeah. P to the power minus 1 is modulo. So that's what he expanded the formula, right? Just to make sure that, why it is called as modulo p, inverse p, not just, like inverse modulo p, not just inverse p. I think, makes sense.
Okay. So now we know that how to calculate the hash of a substring if we have calculated the full array of hash, right? So is this part clear to everyone? Because this part will be used in one more problem that we will cover. So if anyone has any concern, please show up the hand so that I can see and address it. Okay. So that's clear to everyone, right? So as we have discussed earlier, so now what we will do, now we know a method to calculate hash of any subarray, say from L to R in constant time, because we have already calculated the hash array, right? So now what we do is we can maintain one set of integers and we will call it just hash, or say just visited hash. Yeah. So now what we do is we start from the start of the index this, and as soon as we know that the length of our pattern is going to be fixed always, right? Which is 5 in this case. So as soon as we reach first 5 characters, what we do is the hash that we have calculated, we simply store it into the hash set. And every time we calculate a hash, basically we do sliding window kind of a thing. First 4 characters, then next 5 characters, then next 5 characters, then again next 5 characters, like this. And every time we calculate a hash, we store it into this set visited hash, and we check if whether this hash has already been encountered or not. If there hash is, we have already encountered that hash earlier, that means that we have found a string equal to the pattern. No, actually, sorry. I think we don't need this. We can simply calculate a hash of a window and check whether it's equal to hash of P or not.
Yeah, that is sufficient enough, right?
Yeah. We can just for all the windows of length m. If we call it as length, its length as m. If for all the windows of length m, we check if its hash is equal to the hash of P, then we can say that the P exists as a substring to the string S. So this way we will be able to solve this problem in O of m time. O of n time. N is length of this string.
So just equating a hash would be enough, or we need to further check that still in case of hash collision?
Yeah. So so that's a good question actually. So now we know that our the number of substring that we can have are huge, right? Even if you consider the length as 10, so you can have 26 to the power 10 substrings, right? Which is much more higher than 10 raised to 9. So 10 raised to 9 is basically number of hash that we can have, number of unique hash. So the thing is that we will have collisions over here, but the chances would be very less. So there are a couple of workarounds to handle the collision. One way to do is whenever you encounter collision, whenever you encounter equality, you can check for the entire string whether that exists or not. Or one more thing that you can do is you can maintain the 2 hash with a different modulo. For example, for one, we were considering 10 plus n modulo 7. And another thing is you can calculate one more hash array with different modulo number. So basically it will be very, very less likely that 2 of the hashes with different modulo will also equate.
So the worst case still m into n. Because you have to check them out.
Yeah. So that's theoretical, but for most of the practical cases, the collision happens very, very less. So this passes the test cases even for the on almost all the good online judges, with the length of the string is 10 raised to 5 or something.
If it repeated character, then that will be the worst case.
Yeah. So basically, if although it's very unlikely that it will reach O of m into n, theoretically it can reach O of m into n. But
so
with
saying something about unique hashes, can you repeat that part?
Unique hashes.
You were saying that this would be the number.
Yeah. So basically 10 raised to 9 plus 7, the modulo which we have chosen. Here, if you would have seen, m is equals to 10 raised to n plus 7. So if you do any modulo with any number, then the result ranges into range 0 to m minus 1, right?
Right.
So for any string, our value would be lie between 0 to m minus 1, right?
Right.
So that's essentially the number of unique hashes that we can have.
All right. Yeah.
So shall I cover the code of this problem, or I should move to the different problem? What you guys suggest?
We can quickly have a glance to the code.
Okay, sure. So is it visible, or the font is the problem?
No, it's visible.
Okay. I'll just give a quick walkthrough to the code. So here we have calculated as a hash, we have initialized our hash to 0. And we have this array prefix of hash, and we have initialized p as 31, which we discussed. Then I have calculated the hash of p hash, and also the inverse modulo of p. Since that's going to be same, I have stored it at once, and I'm reusing it all the time. So then I have created this function mod for calculating the modulo. So basically, why this function? So basically, in most of the programming languages like Java, so it has the negative. It can have the negative values of modulo, but as per the mathematic definition, the value of modulo lies between range 0 to m-1. So theoretically, modulo should not be negative. So to handle that, we do a plus m modulo of m. So it converts the negative modulo to positive, basically. So yeah, so what we do is we calculate hash of this thing, the hash plus base into index. So here I think someone was asking, like the range would be for s, we will have to do some kind of conversion. So it's the logic for the conversion thing. Just a minute, I'm getting my charger. Just a minute. Yeah. So basically, the thing which we will discuss, the hash plus index into the base. Our base is 31. Yeah. So as soon as we reach crosses that size, we calculate the hash of that hash of a window, and we compare both of them. Window hash equal to p hash. If both of them are equal, then we check whether the pattern starts there or not. So that's the, I think, rough idea about the code. I hope that's clear.
So when you are storing your hash in your array on line number 38, you're not calculating the modulo of that part.
Just a minute. So I have this function mod.
Okay.
So I'm calculating modulo inside over here.
Okay.
Your line 47 is to handle the collision, or?
Yeah, line number 47 is to handle the collision.
Okay. If I understood correctly, instead of doing the character by character comparison, which is n time complexity, you are trying to utilize the hash, which is order of one operation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If that is the case, in Java and all, we have a hash get hash method itself, right? Instead of knowing all these mathematics, if I use the hash coming from inbuilt Java, also will help me to get the same kind of solution, right?
No. So one thing is there. So there are two things over here. First thing is that you calculate a hash, right?
Yeah.
If you want a hash of a simple string, that you can use Java's hash code method, and you can get the hash.
Yes.
Now the complication starts when you want to calculate the hash of a substring. So in Java, strings are immutable in Java than most of the programming language. So if you want to calculate hash of a particular substring, so what you will do is you will first call the string.substring method, and you will pass that substring that indices into it, and then you will calculate hash of it.
Yes.
So that part will also take time complexity of O of n. So your solution will become deterministically to O of n square again.
But if you will use a string builder, right? You can use a string builder and put the string. That is a mutable string, right?
No,
yeah, but how will you calculate the hash of the substring?
Yeah, that I don't think so Java has, right? Like you cannot leave a index of 2 characters in a string and get a hash. I don't
also,
think so.
Also, we want to build that prefix hash array, right? So I think that won't use this mathematical format. Basically, it will be n square, right? To just come up with that if we keep passing the string again and again.
That will populating even in fact this part only, it will take O(n) square time.
Yeah, that itself is O(n) square, exactly.
But the prefix hash itself not needed, right? If I am able to get the substring and I am keep passing the, okay, maybe the splitting the string itself may be complex. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't if you say if you don't use this part, then you will not be, basically the whole idea of this solution is you are able to calculate the hash of a substring in constant time. So that's the key idea over here.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, if you go on those routes of doing that, then you can simply apply the brute force approach. That would give you the better result.
Could you explain line 44 when you use the P invert?
Yeah, sure. So P inverse is we have calculated, right, here. So now you would be remember that line over here which we had, this one. So m into x, hash of r minus hash of l minus 1 into x raised to l modulo of m, right? So this is the thing which we are doing over here. We have found out rem by doing previous of hash. This is basically hash of r minus hash of l minus 1, that thing. Rem represents that thing, and then we are multiplying it by PO of inverse I into m minus 1, I minus m plus 1. Yeah, so I minus m plus 1 is that. So as I said, we had this thing over here, right, divided by p raised to l. So that we need to find, right? So I minus m plus 1 gives you that thing. So here L represents I minus m plus 1. So that's basically the start of the index. So if you are currently at the end of some window of size m, and if you want to go to the start of that window, then this is the formula. I minus m plus 1 gives you the start index of that window. Is that clear?
Yeah, you multiply by the invert. Okay, yeah, to make it become P0, right? To start P0.
Yeah.
1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing we, at any step we are we are incrementing the window. We are just getting rid of the first character in the window and adding a new character in the new character to encounter. So I was just thinking this this pre-hash array, we need a complete size of a string, or it should be size of the pattern, because pattern is driving what all characters window should we consider.
Yeah, but what's needed is, so you will have to find the hash of any arbitrary substring, right? As in when you traverse. So if you keep it of size pattern, then how will you find the hash of the say if your pattern is of length 5 and you keep it of length 5, then how will you find hash of a substring that starts at index 6 and ends at index 10?
So that's what we are calculating here now. Starting from index 6 to 10, what we have from index 1 to 2 to 6 we already have in the and then 5 to 9 we already have, and then we have to just discard the fifth character and have the sixth character, 6th to 10th, and 10th character we have to include. So
I think we can do that. I think that's a good suggestion actually. Yeah. Yes, I think we can do that. Yeah. So
where are we doing that sliding window part, like removing the left part?
Yeah. Here we are doing now. We are doing rem pre of hash I minus previous one. So this is basically hash of r minus hash of l minus 1. So shall we move ahead?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, Gaurav, how much time do we have? So based on that, I will choose the next problem.
So we can discuss for 1 more hour.
Okay. Yeah, I think another problem I have that will take around 15-20 minutes, and then we can wrap up the session.
Yeah, 90. That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So we will solve this problem on LeetCode. Yeah. So we are given basically one string, and we need to find a prefix that is also a suffix of that string. So we need to find. Yes, sure. Is it okay?
Yeah.
So basically, we are given one string, and we need to find length of the longest prefix that is also a suffix of that string. So what it means is that, say if you have some string A, B, C, D, and say ABCD, then ABCD is a prefix, and also ABCD is a suffix. This ABCD is a suffix, and this ABCD is a prefix. So for this case, our answer will be 4. So basically, we need to find the longest prefix that is also the suffix of the string. And also one more condition is there. Now this entire string is a prefix, and this entire string is a suffix as well. So the answer will also always be equal to length of the string, right? So the problem will itself not make any sense. So for this, they have given one condition: the length of the prefix should be smaller than the length of actual string. So I hope that's clear. Problem statement. You can maybe just, I can wait for a minute, and you can all internalize the problem first. So I hope the problem is clear. Yeah. So now how to solve this problem? So one approach is the simple brute force approach. What we can do is we can check every prefix and check whether it's a suffix or not. So for example, this example LeetCode that we have. So what are all the prefixes of LeetCode? L, LE, LE, LEE, LEET, LEETC, LEETCO, D, E, right? These are all the prefixes of LeetCode. So I'll start from L, and we will not consider the last one, since we want all prefix whose length is shorter than actual string. Okay, actually I think the more is there. So
the prefix should start from the first character, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe reaching mid may be sufficient enough, right? Should we really go up to the last?
Yeah, I think that also makes. No, I think we will have to go. Yeah. I think what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, we can go till mid. Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, we can. Yeah, so these are all the prefixes of the given string that we have. So we check whether L is a suffix or not. It's not, right? So it's not an answer. Then we check LE is a suffix or not. It's not, right? So it's not an answer. Then we check LEE. It's also not a suffix, so it's also not an answer. Then we check LEET. Now LEET is a suffix that we have. So that's one possible answer we have. then we keep simply moving ahead, but we don't find any better answer. So our answer becomes 4 for this problem. So the complexity of this problem will be O of n square.
What if we have palindrome string? What would be the answer?
If you have palindrome string A, B, C, C, B, A. So the answer will be 1.
Just A and not the whole string, because we are calling it prefix and suffix.
Yeah. So sorry.
So if it is a palindrome, then whole string. So prefix is would not include the whole string. Is that correct?
Yes.
So prefix anyway will not include the whole string, because in problem we are given the constraint that we need to find a prefix whose length is smaller than the actual string.
Okay, understood. Okay.
Yeah, because the entire string is always the prefix of itself.
Yeah, understood.
And also it is suffix. So then problem itself will not make any sense.
All right, it's clear now. Thanks.
Yeah. So if we move ahead with this approach, so it will cost us O of n square time. So now again we have our the solution, the technique which we have just learned right now, rolling hash. We can use we actually don't even need to roll. I think we can use the rolling hash concept here as well to solve this problem. So I would not say it's actually rolling hash, it's simple hashing, I would say. So what we do is we calculate as and when we go in the string. What we do is we calculate hash from both the directions. So if I say take some part, say LEE, then till I reach E, say let's call it forward and backward, forward hash and backward hash. So when I go from start, normally what we see is our L is we do L into P0 plus E into P1 plus E into P2, like this we go. So if I can have these values calculated in reverse direction as well. So from example, if I move 2 characters ahead in forward direction, then at that time I should have the hash of 2 characters from the last as well. Then only I will be able to succeed. So it's like E into P0 plus E into P1 plus E into P2, like that. So anytime if I find that the value of forward hash and backward hash have become equal, then I can say that I have gotten my answer. Like I can keep updating the answer, of course, but for that moment at least I have gotten one possible answer.
I couldn't understand the backward. Why it is starting from E? Forward is okay.
Yeah, sure. So say if our I is 0, so basically what we need to do is we need to say if I want to calculate the hash of if I want to check say prefix of 0 to 2, this prefix is also the suffix or not, and I have hash of this which I am calling forward. Now if I want to check whether this is suffix or not, then I will also have to have some calculate a hash which will be hash of suffix n minus n minus 1 to n minus 3. Yeah, n minus 2 to n minus 1. Sorry, n minus 3 to n minus 1. Right?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Yeah. So that's what we do in this problem. We calculate hash from both the directions, forward as well as backward. And as and when we found our hash forward is equals to backward, then we can say that we have gotten one possible answer, and we move ahead and keep updating our answer.
I think in line number 29 it should be T into P0. Or sorry, EET. T into P2,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, sure. So
it means you are at index 2.
Sorry?
Is this forward backward is the calculation for index 2?
Yeah, for index 2. When I am at index 2. Okay. Then similarly, I'll go ahead for index 3 and index 4 as well.
So basically, for all the string of length 1 to total length minus 1, at any length, we have to calculate that many characters in the forward from starting, and that many characters from the ending, and hash of those many characters.
Yeah. So because we have to check whether prefix equals to suffix or not, and they are equal or not. And if they are equal, then they must be having same length, right? So for any prefix, you will check for the same number of characters from backward. So now one challenge that we have here. So if we do that, how do we calculate this? As we have seen, the definition of our hash is whichever characters you have, A into P0 plus B into P1 plus C into P2 and so on. This is the general definition of hashing that we have seen so far, right? So now this thing is easy to do when you are proceeding from from start to end, right? From when you are moving from left to right, this part you can easily calculate forward hash like this, right? But what happens is, if assume the scenario when you are moving from right to left, then what will happen? Say your first character is, say your string is ABC, and you move from right to left. So you will first do C into P0 plus C plus B into P1 plus A into P2, right? If we go by this approach, then this is what we will be doing when we move from from right to left, right?
Right.
Maybe you can multiply the number of element into your base P0 every time you increase one more letter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like C into P power n minus 3.
And for all the element, you have to add one extra P0, right? Whenever you are trying to get one more character, all your right hand side, you have to get one more P0 for each element. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the problem is that for ABC, for the same string, sorry, actually, I think we should take a better example. AB and AB again that we have over here. So if I calculate the hash of AB, sorry, just a minute. So it will be A into P0 plus B into P1, right? And if I calculate from backward, my hash will be B into P0 and A into P1, right? If I calculate from backward. So this is not the normalized thing, right? If I compare this to value, the result won't be equal. So my solution won't work, right? So what I need to do is, from backward also, I need to calculate the hash from left to right part of it. This is the right to left hash of a backward part. I need the same thing which I have done from the forward for this AB as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we do is, we basically instead of doing that thing, what we do is, we just a minute, B into P0 and P1. Yeah. So what we do is, we calculate hash of this thing as like this. So when we are moving from left to right, it's easy for us to calculate the power, right? We can simply keep multiplying by our base. So what we can do is A into, so basically say our initial hash is 0. So then for A, what we can do is, for first character, we can do hash into our just a second.
Should be hash plus, right?
Yeah, hash plus.
Hash plus P0 into.
Yeah,
B.
P0 into
B
A.
when you are calculating first.
A.
Yeah. So this I'll get first. Then what I can do is I can just a second. Let me formulate it. So basically hash. Yeah. So what I'll
then
do
you'll come from the backward, right? Whatever, if you're checking the first character A.
So we will do simultaneously only. So how we calculate the hash? So here we will calculate our like reverse our hashing logic. What we will do? Hash into P. Hash into P0. Sorry, P is same all the time, right? Yeah. So hash into P plus A. This is what we will do first. Then for B, so this becomes our hash. So now what we'll do for B also, we will do hash into P plus B. So now what is happening is we are raising the power of first element, power of all the elements when we multiply hash by P, right? We are raising power of all the elements by P. So this will give us hash as A into P1 plus B into P0. Does that make sense? We have reversed our hashing logic a bit. Is it
last element should be P of 0. The previous element should be P1, right? That's what we want.
Yeah. So now if you compare these two, then these two have become equal. A into P1 and B into P0.
Okay, maybe you are.
I did not get it actually. I know that what is the problem we are trying to solve, but I still could not relate, like, because we are coming from left to right, the letters are different and the power is different compared to when we are going from right to left. How we are making sure that we can compare them well.
Yeah, sure.
So, why is hash 0 at line 38?
At line 38. So that's initialization. We initialize hash as hash equal to 0.
Okay. So the first one would not be having any power of P then because of this.
Yeah. So in general, the formula that we saw, we do A into P0. So 0 means P raised to 0 is 1. So technically that's not any power.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So maybe I should reiterate the problem that we are facing. So what happens is that when we calculate hash from forward to backward, so basically at the same time, we need hash for the same number of characters from backward as well. That's the problem we are facing, right? So now what we basically, if we see from backside, then this is the way we are calculating the hash. So if you see for this string A, B, C and AB, and you see from backside, if just for a moment assume that we are traversing from right to left, then we will be getting this hash B, this part actually. Just a minute. Into B into B, yeah, B into P0. If you move from right to left, then in this order you will be calculating your hash, right? Then the next would be C into just a minute. So it will be something like B into P0 plus A into P1 plus C into P2. It will be something like this, right? If we calculate from right to left.
Can't we just update the character into P power the iteration index? Because when you are running the first character, I mean 0th element in your iteration, your last character into P power 0. When you are going to next element, you will be going to last side also second element. That's going to be the current character into P power 1, right? Why?
Yeah. Last second character. That's last second character.
it means your index only, right? If you anyhow we have the p fixed. When you are iterating index 1, it means b from your first side. The same thing we can do from the back side. The current character is a into p power 1, right?
Yeah.
I'm not able to understand why this much complicated logic to.
Okay.
May I suggest something?
Yeah, sure.
Can we calculate the hash of ABC of the prefix only? But first get the hash of C, then get the hash of BC, and then get the ABC. I mean, same logic what you apply from back, but for the front also. Then probably it will make it more clear.
Yeah, but
if you do for ABC, right? We are doing A into P1 plus B into A into P0 plus B into P1 plus C into P2, right?
Yeah.
Now, instead of going from forward for ABC also, if we first get the hash of C, then BC, and then ABC, and then come up with the same formula, that might make it clear.
Okay. So, yeah, sure. Sure. I think that's a good suggestion. So now I think I'll be able to explain the problem better. Yeah. So say if we calculate from forward, A into P0 plus B into P1 plus C into P2.
Yeah, B into P1. I think we have written P2 here.
Yeah, I think B into P1 plus C into P2. This is what we have from when we, let's remove this part now.
Yeah, I think B into P1. I think that will be confusing otherwise. B into P1 in line 43.
Yeah. So this is what we have from forward. Now, if I say for ABC, now if I calculate the hash of say if I want to calculate the hash of last 3 characters from backward, then what I need is I need C into P raised to 0 plus A into P raised to 1 plus B into P raised to 2.
Yes.
Right. If I calculate from if for last 3 characters, if I want to calculate hash, then this should the hash should look like this, right?
To be equal. Yeah.
Now the problem is that we get this last character first. We get BL. Just a minute.
Yeah, so B into P0 at least first we get if we come from the back.
Yeah, if we come from back, then we get B as P0, right? We get B with P0. So technically.
Yeah.
So what you will have to do is when you come here on this C, you will have to raise its power. You will have to calculate, do some extra work to calculate its power for to that particular index.
Or other way, Arpit, when we come to C, right, we basically use the pre-calculated hash of AB. So if we can write down what is the hash of AB, and when we calculate the hash of AB, last 2, then that use the pre-calculated hash of B and just adding A, right? So when we want to calculate the hash of CAB, that means we already have a hash of AB.
Last 2 characters we already have.
So AB hash was A into P0 plus B into P1. See, hash of B is just B into P0.
Now, hash of B is B into P0.
AB is basically when we calculate the hash of AB, we are reusing the hash of B that we already calculated.
Yeah, of course.
So if we can break it down, CAB to, let's say that's C plus hash of AB.
Yeah.
And we are doing something with that, not only just simply using it, but we are doing something with that.
But the power will change, right? Like
Yes.
Okay.
So see, CAB, hash of CAB is equal to hash of C plus we are doing something with the hash of AB.
Okay.
And basically the something means we are just multiplying the P into hash of AB. Right. Hash of CAB is equal to hash of C plus P multiplied by hash of AB.
Yeah. So basically that's actually the reason why we use multiplication instead of addition. So what we do is, so if you multiply a number by p, a hash of some part by p, then all the powers are raised by p, right?
Right.
So what we do is we so from right to left. So basically, if we move from left to right, then our hashing algorithm remains same. We use this formula to calculate the hash. Now from right to left, what we will do is, say initial hash is 0 from right to left. So what we will do is hash, I will call it hash of current. Hash of I will be equal to hash of I plus 1 into p plus current value, which is say any s of I. S is our basically string and p is our prime number. So that's what we will do. So this way, what will happen is we will start getting the hash from backward as well in this order.
Yeah.
So I hope that's clear now.
Right.
Yeah. So anyone has any concern with this part of it?
I think this is correct, because if you just take a forward hash of A and B, and from the backside also, if you take the hash on line 45, if you just take the backward hash of A and B, you will get exactly the same value. But right now you are taking ABC and CAB, therefore they are not matching.
Yeah.
So that is correct. You are doing correctly.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, Santosh, right? Like whenever we take the character from the length of the string, if we are subtracting the characters, then we will again start from P0 on the backside also, right? So it will match, right?
Yeah, so like whenever we take, first he took B from the backside, so multiplied by P0, that was fine. But then when he added A, so he multiplied A by P0, and then because he had to multiply B with the first B with P0, right? Therefore, the equation will be A into P0 plus B into P1.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So then it will match for the.
So we can come in the similar, right? Like whatever if we are taking 2 characters, then backward length minus 2, so which is the A character, and that will be P0 from the backside. So it will be, and maximum it can go to the n by 2, right? Like whenever we reach C, that means, we don't have to calculate, because, our left and right. So basically we just need to stop there, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Not n by 2. I think it can go up to n minus 1.
Okay.
So because
it's the same number, right? Yeah.
The prefix, I mean, you can have up to n minus 1 matching from front and back.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct, Bhavesh. Yeah, because you can have a complete, you need to still continue, not to the entire string, but n minus 1, right? There could be another match you can find out. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So maybe we will quickly look at the code for it. So we have simply taken 2 hash 1 and hash 2, and we find the first character and last character. We calculate hash with 2 approaches that we have discussed. In what one we multiplied by 26, and another one we add. And if both of them are equal, then we say len equals to I plus 1.
And here the base and 26 both are same, right? Has 2 plus last into base, at line number 25.
Yeah.
And line number 24, we said that has 1 into 26. The base and 26 are same or different?
No, so base is basically power of 26.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We keep it increasing.
Yeah. Base is for the reverse hash. Backward
hash.
Yeah.
Got it.
This would write gradually.
Here, this collision we are not taking care of.
Yeah, so basically in this problem on LeetCode, the test cases was poor, so this passed the problem. But if it's worth mentioning in the interview or something like that, that we have to handle the collision.
Why is this base of 26 and not 31? Like we used 31 last time.
Yeah, so basically you have to choose some number greater than 26, greater than or equal to 26. Okay. Yeah, so it can be 26 or it can be 31. That's not a problem.
Like, yeah, we discussed that it should be generally prime. Prime is a better option.
So here
yeah,
all the characters will be small characters, like a lowercase?
Yeah, that's given in the constraints in the problem.
Oh, okay, that's what you were taking, just 26, right? But if it is going to be, okay.
Yeah, so coming to one point, actually someone raised the concern that we only need to traverse till mid of the string and not till the end. So I think we will have to traverse through the entire string, because the reason is that the prefix and suffix can overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is what he corrected also. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We were confused about that, but that's good. Yeah.
Or one more thing. So Arpit, I think this approach is also fine, but can we use the another approach that we discussed where we calculate the hash of substring? That also will work, right?
Which one?
And the hash of substring. So
yeah. So basically, you can do it that way as well, but I think that will be too much for this problem. Okay, because we need the hash from the terminals only. We don't need the hash of some middle substring, right? We need the terminal hashes starting from start.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm saying that complexity wise both will be same, right?
Yeah, I think I'll have to think. Just a minute.
But there will be more space. That's what we will.
Yeah, you will have to use an extra space.
I understand. The whole array is extra space we have to use. Yes. Yes.
So I hope that's
clear.
What
is the mod constant actually you have used here? Okay, so that is the 10 to the power
9 plus 7.
Okay.
So the only way to check for collision is to traverse that part of the string, right?
Yeah. So there is one more approach. So that's little non-deterministic one. What you can do is you can calculate, instead of we are calculating here one hash from forward and one hash from backward, right? What you can do is, and this number which we have taken, so you can take one more mod, say you can call it mod 2, to some another number, and you can calculate 2 hash from forward and 2 hash from backward, and you can calculate the and you can check for equality both the hashes. So that will even reduce your time complexity for chances for collision.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So in that case, we'll have a hash 1 prime, and hash 2 and hash 2 prime, and always match hash 2 and hash 1 prime and hash 2 prime, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Cool.
So, is that clear?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I have one more problem. So we will just discuss approach for that problem, and I will leave up to you to code that. Yeah. So this is one problem that we have. So this is very interesting problem. Actually, I found it. So you are given one string. It's visible, right?
Yes, it is.
So you are given one string and you are given q queries, and for each query you have to return whether the substring is starting and ending at that index is palindrome or not. So for example, for this string, you have to return whether string at 0 to 10 is palindrome or not. Then 5 to 8, whether it's palindrome or not. That's what you have to do. So the naive approach for this problem is to simply, check for the given indices, whether the string formed is palindrome or not. But the time complexity, I hope the problem is clear, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, what will happen is your time complexity will become, if you have q queries and length of a string is n, then your time complexity will become O of q into n. Because for each query you will have to traverse at max, you will have to traverse entire string, right? So the worst case time complexity can go up to q into n. So so it would be very slow, but we can use the same concept of the rolling hash that we have learned just now, what you can do is you can create two hash array. One is for hash string in forward direction, and one for hash 2 in reverse direction. You can reverse s and calculate its hash. Now, if you have to check whether the string L to R is palindrome or not. What you do is you just calculate the hash of substring of L to R in both the hashes and check whether they are equal or not. So in this case, in this way, the time complexity for each query would be O of 1. So your overall time complexity would become O of Q. So this will dramatically reduce your runtime. So is that clear?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah. So you're
yeah,
saying
so in
like,
this case, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So in this case, basically, we pre-calculate that hash in the both direction, right?
Yeah, in forward as well as reverse.
And then basically use that the forward formula. I mean, and basically try to find out if the hash of that range match in both forward and backward.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice approach actually.
So I think use that formula, right? Hash of R minus hash of L minus 1.
Yeah.
Both of these arrays.
That formula, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's all from my side.
Can this approach apply to the previous solution as well? Like we reverse the string and then take to find the prefix and suffix?
No, I think it won't apply to it, because in that what we have to do is we have to find the hash of suffix. Even if you reverse, you will run into the same problem which we had of that powers. One way you will get powers in increasing order, and another when you will get power in decreasing order. So that problem will still remain even if you reverse the string.
So here it's like the mirror image, because we are looking for palindromes, right?
Yeah.
And therefore it might work. Yeah.
How do you can you say the formula to say the suffix from I to j? Because before we only do prefix and suffix, right? And now we do infix. So if that modular would affect it?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Before we do infix and suffix, right? But now we do from anything from like from I to j. So how do we get the hash from I to j?
So the idea is same. We calculate the hash 1 and hash 2.
No, I think Leon. I think Arpit, Leon has a question. I think probably we can quickly go where we the first things that we discuss, where we basically find the hash of a substring, and we apply that, Leon, here, and not the second problem.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay, yeah, this one.
Yeah, this is the one we use basically, where we find a hash of a range.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So my another question is that modular is only work for addition and multiplication, but let's say if I have subtraction, and instead of like A subtract B and I do A plus minus B, would that still work?
No. So it doesn't directly apply to subtraction. There is a different property of modulo for subtraction. So I don't have it that on my tips, but yeah, there is a different property for it, little bit different than addition.
But this is the same at the addition, right? I do A plus and then minus B. That's also a addition.
Yeah, actually, just a minute. Let me check it out. Actually, I just checked it couple of hours back only. I think it's not there. Yeah. This one is like that. A minus B mod C is A mod C minus B mod C. I think it is same. Yeah, you're correct actually.
Yeah, it is same. Yeah.
It's the distributive property, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It holds for both addition, subtraction as well as multiplication.
Yeah. So this rolling hash actually saves us a lot of time complexity, correct? So
yeah.
It is very
it's quadratic to linear, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So is the Rabin Karp is based on the rolling hash, right? The Rabin Karp.
Yeah, I think Rabin. I don't exactly remember Rabin Karp, but I think it is based on rolling hash.
Yeah, they use a rolling hash.
Yeah, I think it is kind of.
KMP.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, is there any, like the rolling has the practical algorithms, right? Rabin Karp, and there is couple more at there, right?
KMP.
No, I think KMP is not based on rolling hash.
Okay. Yeah, I just knew about Rabin Karp, but okay.
Yeah, KMP is not based on rolling hash.
Rabin Karp is based on rolling hash. I think the only thing is that you have two different string at all. And that's where basically that's for the string comparison, right?
Yeah, it's basically searching, right? When we go to Google Doc, we have like in this case, right? When we apply a Control F, that means it's a bigger string, right? If you think about it, and then we're trying to search. Isn't the same pattern will be applied, right? Like if we think about, right, we have maybe 5,000 words of a paragraph, and we're searching some word. It's exactly what the rolling has to do, right? It has to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the perfect example, I would say.
Yeah, it's so quick actually. If we, I mean, most of the searching, right, even in docs also. So, and also it will give the count, right? Let's say, you are at 1 of 50, you are at 2 of 50, right? So that basically, somehow pre-computation and this saves, right? As long as you type, I mean, don't know, it's kind of, because even though you go through linear way, it will still, if you have a, like a 50-page document with multiple MBs or GBs. So, okay, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a practical application. Good to know, right? Like how it is applied.
Yeah. Actually, I personally like this algorithm very much. It solves a lot of complex problems with very, efficient way.
Yeah. And you also explained couple of different variations and applications of this rolling hash. They are the advanced versions of how to use a rolling hash, right? So that's really good. Yeah, that's very good, I would say.
Yeah,
it's very helpful.
It's really good. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I found this thing was a little hard to explain. Also, this was my first session. I have not delivered any kind of session before.
Yeah. No, but it is a complex topic. It's not an easy one. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the P is always have to be greater than, like in this case, the ABC lowercase. So P always have to be greater than 26, right?
Yeah. Greater than equal to 26.
If I have both lowercase and uppercase, so that's gonna have to be greater than 52.
Yeah, so basically then what you can do is you can either take it greater than 52, or the range of ASCII lies between 122, right? Up to 122, all the ASCII characters get ended, basically alphabets. So you can choose 123, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mod remains same all the time. Is that correct? Like 10 to the power 9 plus 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he mentioned that the mod, if we have one mod, the chance of collision could be, could be normal. But we have two mod, like type 2 hash, then the chance of collision will be less.
Yeah, very, very minimal. In fact, there is one problem as well. I can share that you can try out. In that, we need 2 hashes to solve the problem. So that's the place from where I learned this double hashing thing, which I mentioned 2-3 times. Longest duplicate substring. Yeah, this is the problem. So in this, if you see, I have used 2 hashes, hash1, hash2, h10, yeah, and these 2 different modulos I have taken. And at the time of comparison, I check viz1 dot contains h1 and viz2 dot contains h2. So I have used 2 hashes in this problem.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Would you post a link to the related problem?
Yeah, sure. I should. Sir.
Yeah, if you know like these 5 or 6 problems are all related, like it helps to keep running in. Okay, even this one can be solved like this. Even this one.
Yeah, sure. I shall explore some problems, and if I find, I'll definitely share. Otherwise, I will share link to these 3-4 problems.
Okay, so right now I have longest duplicate string. Yeah, please go ahead.
Arpit, do you have the derivation of that formula which you explained in beginning somewhere, which we can refer? I mean, other than the what we discussed, if we have to see like
this one,
is there any article which explains this same thing?
So yeah, I think there is an article, but I'm not sure whether that covers. So this website called as CP algorithm.
Okay.
So I will put this link as well in the channel.
Okay.
So yeah, it has this section called as modulo inverse. So if this can help you.
Yeah, I mean, we can just combine whatever you have delivered today. I think it is very useful, and then we can just correlate things and try to get more understanding.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool.
I'm stopping recording.
Yeah, sure.